Harper Audio presents The Home for Unwanted Girls, a novel by Joanna Goodman, performed by Saskia Maarleveld. To an insignificant flower, obscurely blooming in a lonely wild. And though thou seem'st a weedling wild and neglected like to me, thou still art dear to nature's child, and I will stop to notice thee. For oft, like thee in wild retreat, arrayed in humble garb like thee, there's many a seeming weed proves sweet as garden flowers can be. And like to thee, each seeming weed flowers unregarded, like to thee without improvement runs to seed, wild and neglected like me. John Clare. Prologue. 1950. He who plants a seed plants life. This is something Maggie's father always says, quoting from his prized yearbooks of agriculture in 1940 to 48. He doesn't just dispense seeds, he is devoted to them the way a preacher is devoted to God. He's known in their town as the Seed Man, a vainglorious title, but it has a noble ring. Maggie loves being the Seed Man's daughter. It gives her an air of prestige. At least it did, once. Much like the province in which she lives, where the French and English are perpetually vying for the upper hand, her family also has two very distinct sides. Maggie understood early on that a stake had to be planted, an allegiance made. She aligned with her father, and he with her. When she was very young, he used to read to her from his impressive collection of horticulture books. Her favorite was The Gardener's Bug Book. There was a poem on the first page, which she knew by heart. The rosebug on the rose is evil. So are those who see the rosebug, not the rose. While other children were lulled to sleep with fairy tales, her bedtime stories were about seeds and gardening. Johnny Appleseed carrying his seeds from the cider presses of Pennsylvania, walking hundreds of miles tending his orchards, sharing the wealth of his apples with the settlers and the Indians. Or Gregor Mendel, the Austrian monk who planted peas in his monastery garden and studied the traits of each generation, and whose records, her father claimed, were the foundation of our current knowledge of genetics and heredity. Such triumphs, her father pointed out, always begin with a single seed. "How do you make the seeds you sell?" she once asked him. He looked at her as though he was offended, and replied, "I don't make the seeds, Maggie. The flowers do." It's their potential for beauty he admires most, the graceful stem that has yet to grow, the shape of the leaf and color of the flower, the abundance of the fruit. Looking at the plainest seed in the palm of his hand, he understands the miracle that will come to pass as it fulfills its purpose. He also appreciates the predictability of seeds. The corn seed, for instance, always produces a mature plant in 90 days. Her father likes being able to rely on such things, although occasionally his plants are imperfect or deformed, and it troubles him deeply, keeps him up pacing through the night, as though the seed itself has betrayed him. Always a source of comfort to her as a child, his stories mean even more to her now, as she tries to quiet herself to sleep in this strange bed, strange body. At 16, Maggie has a seed of her own growing inside her, and it's almost fully ripened. The baby moves and kicks with gusto, pressing its feet and elbows against the walls of her belly, reminding her of her terrible transgression, the shame it's caused, and the way it's upheaved her comfortable life. Outside, the sky has gone dark. She came up for an afternoon nap, but it must be supper time by now, and she's still wide awake. She lays a hand on her belly and instantly feels the unnerving acrobatics beneath her palm. At least she isn't alone in this place anymore. Her aunt calls out for supper and Maggie stretches. She reluctantly turns on the lamp, eases herself off the bed, and goes downstairs to face them. The platter of roast beef is set down on the table for Sunday dinner, alongside dishes of carrots, potatoes, peas. A bottle of wine is opened for the grown-ups. Fresh baked bread, soft butter, salt and pepper. Her parents are visiting. Maggie is happy to see her father. She misses him, even though he's different with her. She can tell he's making an effort, but there's a shadow in his blue eyes now whenever he looks at her, which isn't often enough. His attempt...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?